Charlie, how you doing?
Hello, yeah, all good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. It's nice to chat to you again. So I already know your favourite brew is a black coffee, which happens to be one of my least favourites, but fine, we won't argue about it. What is your least favourite brew? That's what I want to know.
Probably a very weak cup of tea with too much milk. So like, you know when it's so weak, it's like thin. It's like drinking milky water. You know, someone's just like glanced the tea bag over the top of the water. Just
not good.
There's nothing to it.
Especially if people make it by putting the milk in first. Have you seen people do it before?
Yeah, that's not a thing. I saw someone once make a cup of tea by microwaving it.
No.
So tea bag, water, milk, then microwave.
Sacrilege. Right, so down to business. We're coming up to exam season in schools, primary and secondary schools. So I know, again, this is something that you work with a lot of staff about. What are the common challenges that you see for school staff around exam season?
I think probably the biggest one is absorbing all the emotion that's in the air. Now, that's a blessing and a curse, right? To be emotionally intelligent and emotionally aware and all that stuff is really, really important. It's one of the things that makes teachers so amazing at what they do. But when we're absorbing the student stress, worry, anxiety, all that stuff, when we're absorbing the pressure that maybe SLT are facing and leadership are facing, parents and their concern for their children, our colleagues' concerns about their classes and all the rest of it, when we're absorbing all that like a sponge, it is a lot, basically. It really is a lot. And I think because of that, and obviously we want to do as well as we can and support the children as well as we can, we can tend to be on all the time. You know, we're pushing through that season without breaks, without recovery. Our brain is fried ourselves and we're trying to kind of regulate others, essentially. Yeah. And also maybe off the back of that, kind of not acknowledging our own emotions. You know, we tell ourselves like, we're just doing it for the kids, we're doing it for the children. Naturally, we are human beings as well. If we're being really honest with ourselves, we're just big kids, like not so different. And a lot of the compassion and the kindness we show for the children, we can sometimes be a little bit less willing to show for ourselves. And that kind of keeps us in that constant fight or flight, right? We're running on adrenaline, caffeine, sugar, and just like that willpower. And then we feel really guilty if we, particularly around this season, if we do take a day off or we do take time in the evening to, and we don't, I don't know, maybe mark that test paper to give back, or maybe we don't do our analysis, or we don't perfect that presentation for the gaps that we know that the children had before. We then feel really guilty that we're not doing everything within our power. But as you know, we've talked about before, you are the most important part of your teaching, like your needs being met, you being regulated, you having the energy, the headspace to show up how you want to show up. That's what's going to help the children, not just in all of their development, but the academic side of it as well. Like that is the greatest thing that you can do for them. So, you know, take that step sometimes. So it is a lot in this season. There is a lot going on mentally and emotionally for school staff.
Yeah, I suppose it's typical, isn't it, of teachers that you just put yourself last all the time because, you know, ultimately you're in it for the kids and you're just constantly putting them before you. But I guess, like you've said before, if you don't put yourself first in a lot of ways, then that is actually quite a selfish thing because you can't be there fully for the kids if your cup isn't full as such. Okay, so what would you advise teachers to do to manage this kind of stress and exam pressure?
Yeah. I think, you know, from what we've just said there, a really nice image to have in your mind is that idea of like what I call the capacity cup. So if you imagine you've got this cup, right, and all of that stress and exam pressure and worry and everything else is filling it up on top of your own concerns. You know, maybe there's a bill that needs to be paid or a deadline for a doctor's appointment you need to sort out. You know, you got your own children at home, all the other parts of teaching. You know, if you're in secondary, you probably don't just have exam level classes. If you're in primary, you've got other things to be thinking about as well. Like there's a lot going into that cup. That's filling up very, very quickly across the year, but also particularly as we approach this exam season. So with that, we want to see how we can maybe make that cup bigger. And we're going to look at this, but how we can make that cup bigger with proactive strategy. So give yourself more capacity with those proactive strategies that we can do. How we can maybe put a lid, so that's your boundaries, to maybe stop some of this pressure and stress coming in. And also how we can maybe let some of it out. So maybe poking some holes in the bottom. So those more restorative actions, you know, we often call them like self-care, you know, things like that. Just having that image in your mind of a capacity cup, I think is a general principle that can be really useful in terms of, can I make it bigger? Can I put a lid on it? Can I poke some holes in the bottom? And when we are experiencing these really high stress seasons, we often go for what I call boomerangs. So with our, we use the word self-care. I'm not a big fan of the word self-care because I think it's got connotations of just bubble baths and candles and meditation. I think looking after ourselves is a lot bigger than that, and sometimes takes the ugly, hard effort that we don't really want to be thinking about. But when we're thinking about self-care, we have slingshots, which are the things, like I say, that take the effort. They take the effort, but once we release them, we've actually kind of dealt with the thing, or we have done something really productive for ourselves.
Yeah. Okay.
And we've got then like the boomerangs. And the boomerangs are just like a boomerang. You throw it, the stress feels like it's gone, but 5-10 minutes later, it comes whipping back round and smacks you in the head. It might be the scrolling, it might be the snacking, it might be a couple of glasses of wine that maybe turns into a bottle of wine. You know, there's lots of ways that we do, lots of coping strategies and coping mechanisms that we do have as school staff, basically, because we're stressed, and it's a human thing to do. We have this need that's not being met. We want certainty, we want control, we want comfort. So we lean on these coping strategies. It's a perfectly human thing to do. But if we're leaning on the boomerangs all the time, we're gonna literally and figuratively have a bit of a headache by the end of it, most likely. Yeah, maybe looking at your boomerangs and slingshots, those coping strategies. And again, another general one, the last one I think is redefining on your own terms what success actually looks like for you in this season. It might not be getting every single child to a certain point or level or whatever, you know, because we're all different. We've all got starting points, different starting points. We've all got different abilities and all these different things, you know. And it might not be getting all the children to an A star level, or it's not A star nowadays, is it? Blimey, that's showing my age.
8 or 9, I think.
Yeah, you know, like it might not be just that. It might be part of it, sure, but also, do you want, you know, is part of success in this season for you helping children get through it without, you know, certain levels of anxiety, or as stress free as possible? Do you want to preserve their self-worth and self-esteem during this process? Is it about making sure that the children don't have a really difficult relationship with exams in the future when they, you know, maybe go to bigger exams or whatever? So it is thinking about what you think success is in this, because it's not just numbers and stats and points and stuff. There's a lot more to what we do, and I think just coming back to that and gently reminding yourself of that, I think, is really important.
I think it takes someone like you to reiterate that, because I totally get what you're saying. And I think, having been obviously as a primary school teacher, seeing kids who have come so far, might have joined the school, can't even sit still in a chair, to working calmly, learning, might not get great SATs results, but I know that's not the only measure, and actually they've come really, really far in other senses. But I'm guessing the same as a secondary school, there is so much pressure from above of getting the numbers and the data that it feels like that is the only measure of success, where we need people like you spreading the message that it really isn't, and that there are other ways to kind of measure your sort of self-value when it comes to how well you've done with teaching. Okay, so I love the analogies of slingshot and boomerang, but I'm not gonna lie, I'd be thinking, okay, how can I practically do that though? I need to be told some actual strategies. So what would you recommend in terms of things we can actually implement?
Well, you know, I love an acronym and analogies and anything like that, any systems, images, whatever, just because hopefully it helps stick in people's minds. So when it comes to, especially around, I call them pinch points in the year, you know, exam season is a pinch point. It's a bottleneck almost. You know, you've got more stress, pressure, deadlines, the rest of it than you've got space for. In these pinch points, I think it's really useful to use what I call the 3 R's. So the first R is these are super, super basic. These are for the most part things that we already know, but it's good to have a reminder. The first R is to regulate. We cannot think clearly, and we cannot effectively problem solve. We cannot support others if we ourselves are dysregulated. That's just the bottom line. If our needs are not being met, it's unbelievably difficult. If it feels like you're constantly fighting an uphill battle and trying to push a rock up a hill when you're trying to work, you know, support others when you are not getting what you need, that's why. It's because you're on zero battery, or you're not having your needs met. So there are a few different very small, quick, bite-sized things we can do. So I love this idea of what I call daily decompressions. Daily decompressions are these moments in the day. It might be 30 seconds, it might be 3 minutes, right? It doesn't need to be a certain length of time, but they're these little moments in the day where we can regulate the central nervous system. So a really simple way that we can do this is to think about the breath and the breathing, because by impacting our breathing, we can move ourselves from what we call the sympathetic nervous system. Sometimes it's referred to as like fight or flight. And it's not quite so black and white with that. It's a bit more of a crossover than that. But for the most part, from the sympathetic nervous system through to the parasympathetic. So we call that rest and digest, for example. We're thinking about calming the breathing down, bringing down the heart rate, just generally relaxing the muscles and relaxing the body. So things like box breathing, could be breathing in for 3 seconds, holding for 3 seconds, breathing out for 3 seconds, holding for 3 seconds, or 4 if you've got the lung capacity for that. Lots of different breathing strategies. So like the hand model of breathing. So breathing in through the nose on the upstroke with your finger, pausing at the top of the finger, and then breathing out through the mouth on the downstroke. This is great for the children as well, by the way. There's lots of different strategies that we can use with breathing. It might not be that. It might be, another great one is the spa car, right? So turning your car into a spa on wheels. So you might have a warm drink in there ready to go. You might have a nice snack. You might have some hand cream. You might have some relaxing music. You might have a nice scented spray, like, things like essential oil sprays and things like that. Turning your car, your commute into this little mini spa. Anything like that really can be really useful. So those are just a few examples. It might be popping your head outside, like we've talked about before, being out in nature, looking up at the sky, taking some deep breaths, getting sunlight on your skin. Particularly, around most of the exam seasons, you've got some good weather, hopefully. There are little things that we can do to regulate ourselves. And we could talk about that alone for hours. But that first stage of regulating is you bringing yourself back down to baseline. So you are in a position where you can then help others. The second one is going to be to reframe. We've already talked about this, so I'll be brief on it. But reframing what these exams are about, and also reframing what you can do. We talk a lot about like the circles of control, right? What's within my control, what's within my influence, what's outside my control completely. How the children do on that day. And I know this from personal experience of children who were working at greater depth level the entire academic year. On the day, nerves, pressure, stress got to them and they crumbled under the pressure. And it's awful to see. And it's a really horrible part of the exam process, but it happens. And you cannot absorb that as your fault or your responsibility. Like what the children do ultimately is outside your control. And there are so many factors that go into that. Again, we'll be here forever if we talk about that, but there is so much going on right now that is outside your control. Knowing your remit, knowing what you can control, which is literally your thoughts and therefore your actions, everything else is outside your control. What you can influence, obviously you can influence the children, you can influence the environment, you can talk about certain topics, you can give them strategies as well. I think reframing what's in and out your control is really important. You can support people, but you can't save them. You're not there to save anyone. That's not on you. And also, as we talked about earlier, reframing what these exams mean and what success means for you. The outcome of these exams is not a measure of your worth. It simply cannot be a measure of your worth. It's two completely different things. The final R, so we've had regulate, we've had reframe. The final R is refill. And this is the whole put your oxygen mask on first, refill your cup, these sorts of things. Having these non-negotiable basics of having your needs met, looking at how you're sleeping and if you're spending too much time scrolling on your phone, looking at, am I drinking water when I wake up first thing because I'm probably dehydrated, particularly in summer? Am I eating some fruits and vegetables? Those absolute physical but also psychological basics I think is really important. And also, what are you doing for yourself? And that I know that ruffled my feathers very much when I was in the classroom. People saying, you need to do something for yourself. You're thinking, well, when am I going to do that? Where's the time?
Yeah.
It can be quite a frustrating thing to hear, but it's really difficult to build boundaries if there's nothing to build boundaries around. So asking yourself, where's my moment of joy in the day? Is it having that lovely warm, like I say, I love a lovely warm, hot coffee without milk first thing before your own children at home, if you've got them, are up, before other people are up and about, just that moment for yourself. Maybe that's your moment of joy. Maybe it is having a Disney sing-along in the car on the commute to school.
That'd be mine.
That might be mine's the cheesy, these noughties pop, like
Yeah.
bit of Bewitched, stuff like that. These little moments of joy. Maybe it is what you have for dinner. Maybe you actually plan a really nice dinner.
Yeah.
It needs to take forever to cook, but maybe it's just something really enjoyable. Asking yourself where are these moments of joy, because we're thinking about refilling ourselves, right? And nurturing ourselves. And a really good question to think about with that is, like, what do I need now? Not just what do others need from me? What do I need right now? How can I best meet my needs so that I can create this positive ripple effect that benefits everyone around me, literally everyone, and everyone around them as well. Like your own well-being impacts literally hundreds, if not thousands of people in your community. We don't think of it like that, but genuinely it really does. So yeah, we're thinking about regulate, we're thinking about reframe, and we're thinking about refill.
Yeah, you can't pour from an empty cup, can you, as I say? So it's all so important to remember, and I'm glad you're here reminding me, because it's things that I tell other people and they just don't listen to for myself. So for any teachers that are listening to this right now and really feeling the pressure of the exams, what's one reminder that you would give them?
I think similar to what we've talked about a couple of times, but to remember that the impact that you have had 100% have had, even if you can't see it, the impact that you have had on your class, it just simply cannot be captured by that snapshot.
Yeah.
That is only measuring an extremely narrow range of development or whatever, progress, whatever, of that child and those children. If you can distance yourself from that a little bit and what that means about you, because the truth is, it doesn't mean anything about you. It's not about you, but we do internalize and personalize it because of that pressure that's put on us. If you can sort of detach yourself from that a little bit, and a way to do this is to take a moment and write down from this year all of your wins, all of your successes, and maybe most importantly, all of the obstacles that you've overcome, everything that you've dealt with, everything you've got through. You will see, I call it a confidence collection. You will see that there is so much to be proud of.
Yeah.
You will feel so much more positive regardless of what happens in these exams.
Yeah. I love that. I had a little email folder that was just a smiley face, and every time I got a nice email, I'd put it in there. And then if I was feeling low, I'd then go back and read all those nice emails. So I suppose similar.
Amazing.
Honestly, your advice is all invaluable, and you've shared it all for free here. So thank you so much. If anyone wants to hear more about this, you've written another comprehensive blog for us, haven't you, on how to deal with exam stress. So you can, anyone listen, go ahead and read that. But thank you again. It's so lovely chatting to you.
No worries. Thank you. See you soon.
See you soon.